on the way back from our first excursion, we decided to spend the night in the Spanish State Tourist Inn at Ordesa, where the most exacting mountaineer and tourist can find every comfort. I'd been there only a few months previously, and the manager remembered me, but I was hardly able to speak to him. Carretero wanted to be shown the route I'd followed in the summer. We were in the Ordesa National Park, and farther to the east lay the National Park of San Mauricio, Los Encantats, the Aran Valley, the Aneto, and Monte Perdido. Walking had made us hungry, and we decided to restore our energies while we talked about our plans. Where would we make for on our next trip? To Sal de Mayo, La Brecha, or Gori? We had plenty of time to think it over. And Carretero again insisted on hearing about the last trip. I didn't want to go into details, but in the end I gave in, and so I had to tell the story of my camping in the Pyrenees. Once again, I found myself beside the lake in the National Park of San Mauricio, one of the most attractive places in the Catalonian Pyrenees. I felt jealous, for every mountaineer feels that the hidden places he has discovered belong to him alone. And today, it's easy to travel along mountain roads to the whole zone included between the lakes of La Ratera, La Ribera de San Nicolao, and the river Peguera. These new routes give easy access to a region which could formerly be reached only after days of hard walking. The beauty of the view has changed since I first knew it. The level of the lake has risen, flooding the wood, and the increased expanse of water, lightly stirred by the breeze, is impressive for its tranquility. Memories of green meadows faded away as I looked down to see the waters of the lake lapping the trunks of the last remaining pine trees along its shore. The waters from the high lakes pour into San Mauricio through the falls of La Ratera. This is one of the most attractive spots in the national park. Here the woods die out gradually while the rocks and crags soar above them. On the following morning, we traveled uphill for 2 long hours until we reached the heights of Los Encantats, leaving the River Monastero and the Pico de Sobenoige behind us. Our dog, Mitt, had to wait for us, looking back at us in surprise. Until real climbing began, and the rough ground hurt Mitt's paws, and so we had to leave him behind so as not to waste time. There's no real difficulty in climbing the Los Encantats by the usual route. However, I left nothing to chance. On reaching the summit, we got a wonderful bird's-eye view over the greater part of the national park and a wide range of mountain peaks. A few days later, we dropped down to the Aran Valley. The meadows, Salar-de-Dou, and Viella, surrounded by pasture lands, are a never-to-be-forgotten sight. On crossing the Garona, we became aware of something slipping from us. The river flows over the border into France, making its absence felt in the valley. The traveler's eye roams over the peaceful and inviting countryside where the Pyrenees have lost their wildness. On leaving the valley on the way to the south slope, we come across the town of Banas, an ancient village which contains the most typical features of high Aragon. Amid its busy streets, there stands the palace of the Count of Ribagorza, evocative of memories of noble achievements. while we replenished our store of provisions, I spoke with an old guide. We were going to the most difficult part, and we needed someone who knew the lay of the land well. But this one was busy, so he arranged for another guide to go with us the next day. We wanted to admire the landscape, and so I hired a horse, which made a pleasant walk of what would otherwise have been a long and very weary journey. Mitt enjoyed himself as much as we did. His twitching ears and nose were proof that age-old instincts were awakening. We arrived at La Renfusa, the best situated mountain hut in the area, to find Abadias, whom his friends affectionately call the Lion of Aneto, awaiting us. In an hour and a half, a shortcut, which at times lost itself among patches of snow and rocks, brought us to the Portillon Inferior, and from there we caught sight of the giant of the Pyrenees. The weather was in our favor, and the hanging glacier of the Aneto, typical of the Pyrenees because of its structure, stretched out before us like a great snowfield, its crevices hidden despite the advancing summer. We had to take advantage of the circumstances and attack the peak without a rest, since the greatest danger lies in sudden storms. Behind the glacier, the pass of Mahomet, and once the crest was surmounted, we were on the way to the summit. At last, we reached the top, 3,304 meters above sea level, the highest point in the Pyrenees. This was a rich reward, which probably could only be truly appreciated by the mountaineer. The landscape, the matchless quiet. There in the distance lay Monte Perdido, our next objective. After some days traveling and a night at the Gorith Mountain Refuge, we began the climb. In the pocket formed by El Cilindro and El Perdido in the Macizo de las Tres Sarores, we caught sight of the frozen lake. Amid the rugged landscape, we were to witness the most moving of religious ceremonies. After that pause, which gave our hearts time to rest, we set out again for the region of the peaks, wrapped in a mysterious shroud. The ascent of Monte Perdido was the last of our climbs. in the cleft, the Ordesa National Park, in the quiet of its peaceful valley, a spot of paradise of which God did not wish to deprive us. For some hours, our downward path lay along the damp mountain slopes where nature has laid out a soft, springy carpet. The Cola de Caballo is the highest waterfall of the Aratas. It's situated in the Circo de Soaso, a horseshoe-like mountain formation which is characteristic of the Pyrenees. The gradins of Soaso slope down to the valley in a sequence of huge steps, like polished glass. The river flows into the wood joyfully, and then, more peaceful, it slips between meadows and bushes, hidden by sloping mountainsides and high rocks, which seem to fall apart, encircling one of the most beautiful of all mountain regions, which all who know the Pyrenees consider unique. By a steep wooded path, we approached one of the bluffs of the Faja de Pelay. In the background was the Circo de Cotatuero, where we had crossed the barrier giving access to the Brecha de Roldon and the Circo de Gavarni a few days before. Another of the features of Ordesa is its alpine flora. The edelweiss, dear to mountaineers the world over, abounds all around the Paja de Palay. It was our last night in the mountains, and we gave ourselves up to the magic influence of that unique source of hypnotic attraction, the Pyrenees.